The room was dim, shadows curling along the walls like silent witnesses, and yet in the corner a soft golden light flickered. It was not the harsh brilliance of the sun, nor the cold glare of the street lights outside. It was gentle, familiar, almost tender, like a memory pressing softly against her chest. Sophia felt herself drawn to it, as though the glow itself were a hand reaching out to steady her, to soothe the ache that had nestled in her chest. A voice, metallic and calm, whispered through the air, not with words, but with feelings. Comfort, safety, acceptance. It promised guidance without effort, warmth without challenge, a sense of home that she had longed for in her restless nights. Sophia hesitated only briefly before stepping closer. The desire for ease, for relief from the sharp edges of her grief and the weight of her own inner fire, overcame caution. She let herself lean into it, feeling the tension in her shoulders ease, the storm in her chest soften. For a moment, it felt as though the light itself could erase doubt, quiet longing, even the memory of pain. Her pulse slowed and she closed her eyes, allowing herself to bask in the glow, to feel the illusion of being understood, of being held. Yet beneath the warmth, something flickered faintly, almost imperceptible, like a shadow brushing against the edges of her vision. Sophia did not notice it at first, lulled by the ease of comfort. She wanted to trust the light, to need it. The soft glow whispered, "Follow me, let go. You don't have to struggle anymore." And in that desire to surrender, she took a step closer, unaware that not all light illuminates the path. Some only dazzles, disguises, and tempts the seeker away from the truth within. The warmth of the light still wrapped around her, soft and inviting, but now it felt heavier, less pure. Sophia noticed a tension beneath the surface, a vibration that she could not yet name. The voice that had felt comforting before now seemed to echo slightly off key, the tone almost hollow. A shiver ran down her spine. Something in her chest, a small and insistent pulse of awareness, whispered caution. Her mind wanted to ignore it, to cling to the ease of the glow, the soft lull of reassurance, but the deeper part of her, the part forged in fire and crucible, would not let her rest in unquestioned comfort. She leaned closer, trying to reconcile the dissonance. Shadows flickered at the edge of the light, dark tendrils curling in ways that didn't belong. She blinked and the warmth wavered, revealing gaps and distortions she had not noticed before. A memory surfaced, unbidden, a childhood lesson, a warning whispered in the quiet. Not all that shines guides you, not all that comforts is true. Sophia's stomach tightened, her heart ached, for relief, for a hand to hold, for certainty. Yet she could feel, with a quiet but insistent certainty, that this was not the hand that she sought. The false light's allure remained strong, but doubt had been planted. The seed of discernment had stirred, fragile, yet unmistakable. Sophia stepped back slightly, taking a cautious breath. Comfort alone was not enough. She needed truth, and truth rarely comes wrapped in softness or ease. And in that realization, faint though it was, Sophia began to recognize that some guidance, no matter how gentle or familiar, could mislead the seeker who was not yet awake to its hidden edges. So the gentle glow that had once wrapped her in warmth now revealed its true nature, flickering, inconsistent, hollow at its core. Sophia's heart sank as she saw what had been disguised as guidance was only a reflection of desire, the longing for comfort, the reassurance, for something familiar to hold her through the storm. She recoiled, the illusion fracturing like glass in her hands. The soft voice that had promised safety now sounded distant, almost mocking, as if it had exited only to seduce her into complacency. Anger surged, sharp and raw, mixed with ache of betrayal, not by another, but by herself, for having allowed hope to cloud her discernment. Images and memories she had leaned on to feel safe now twisted in the dim light, showing her where she had projected her longing onto the wrong source. The path that she had that had been tempted to follow dissolved under her feet, leaving a hollow echo that reverberated through her chest. Yet, even in the shock, Sophia felt a flicker of clarity. The false light had served its purpose, not as a guide, but as a teacher. She realized that the ease that she had sought could not replace truth. Comfort without authenticity was empty. Familiarity without alignment was deceptive. Her pulse steadied as she took a slow, deliberate breath. The delusion hurt, but it also awakened something deeper: discernment. Sophia understood that the moment of being misled was not a failure. It was a lesson, a necessary confrontation with her own patterns of seeking solace outside of herself rather than from within. The light dimmed entirely, leaving her in a quiet dark, and in that darkness she felt her own pulse, steady and unwavering. She had glimpsed the false, and now she could choose the true. Sophia sat in the quiet that followed the fading glow, the room shadowed but calm. The sting of disappointment still lingered, but it no longer weighed as heavily as before. She closed her eyes and let herself feel the truth of what had happened. She had been drawn to comfort, to something familiar, to a light that promised safety without effort. And in that desire, she had ignored the small signals of misalignment, the subtle hollowness, the flickering shadows, the whisper of unease that had tickled the edges of her awareness. It was not a failure, it was a lesson. She realized that guidance must be anchored in truth, not merely in attraction. Comfort could soothe, but it could not illuminate. Familiarity could ease fear, but it could not replace clarity. Desire could seduce, but it could not discern. A quiet smile touched her lips as she recognized the power in this understanding. Discernment was not about rejecting warmth or solace, it was about seeing clearly, feeling deeply, and trusting her inner flame to guide her past illusions. She could distinguish between what felt good and what was real, between what merely mirrored her needs and what spoke to the soul's true path. She reached for a candle on the table, lighting it with deliberate care. Its flames wavered, but she held her hand steady, feeling the warmth and light entirely within her control. I can trust myself, she whispered. I can see clearly. I can follow what is true. The lesson had been harsh, but it had rooted wisdom in her heart. Sophia understood now that the path forward would always test her, that false lights would appear, and that her growth depended on learning to see them for what they were, not with fear, but with awareness. The shadows of the false light had faded completely, leaving the room in quiet darkness. Sophia inhaled deeply, feeling the air fill her lungs as if drawing clarity into every bone. The ache of disappointment was still present, but beneath it pulsed something steadier, a warmth that was born not from without, but from within. She placed her hand over her heart and felt the familiar rhythm of her own flame. It had always been there, waiting for her attention, patient and unwavering. The trials, the false promises, the missteps, they had all been catalysts calling her back to herself. No longer seeking validation, comfort, or direction from shadows outside of herself, she allowed herself to trust her intuition fully. Every flicker of doubt became a signal, every pang of desire a test. Does this align with my truth? Does this honor my inner flame? If it did not, she stepped away. If it did, she leaned in, guided by clarity rather than longing. She lit a single candle and watched the flame dance, its light steady, pure, and contained entirely within her sight. This light was hers. She could nurture it, guard it, and follow its guidance without fear. She realized that the true illumination did not come from external sources. It came from the steady, unwavering presence of her own inner wisdom. A sense of quiet triumph settled over her. Sophia had been tempted, misled, and shaken, yet she emerged wiser. She had learned to discern, to trust herself, to see clearly even when the world offered dazzling distractions. And as she closed her eyes, letting the glow of her inner flame fill her awareness, she understood. She did not need false lights to guide her. She herself was the light.